Every 3 minutes, a person in the U.S. is diagnosed with a blood cancer like leukemia, lymphoma, or myeloma, blood cancers that often require patients to endure difficult treatments that leave them feeling weak, cold, and isolated. Subaru of Gwinnett is here to help. Since 2016, Subaru has partnered with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, a cause that FAN has been proud to support for over 24 years. And in the month of June, through our Subaru Loves to Care initiative, we're continuing our partnership with LLS to give even more to patients and their families. Subaru, more than a car company. Visit SubaruofGwinnett.com to learn more.
Pickleball is massive. There are professional leagues, daily tournaments, and seemingly a court in every neighborhood in Atlanta. In today's episode, we talk to Michael Godfried of Pickle, that's PCKL, about how he used his experience in manufacturing to start building rackets for the sport. We talk about how pickleball became such a huge sensation and how he got in early to make rackets the way he wanted to. All that and more in today's episode of the Marketing Madmen.
They say marketing is a madman's game. So now we turn it over to the Marketing Madmen with Nick Constantino and Trip Job.
Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here live from the Battery. And we're going to get to talk some of my passions.
Yeah, we're moving into your world. We're going to get away from the marketing the hypothetical like Nick does and just put stuff out there, the air into the ether, and talk more about kind of product marketing and manufacturing. We have a great interview coming up in the middle segment. We have Mike Godfried. He started his own pickleball racket company, and we talked about a lot of stuff. But you know, Trip, you came from paper goods and manufacturing, and just talk about what a different marketing experience it is when you have a product and the R&D, and then how you're putting out something that is tangible versus maybe a service or a form of media.
You know, I did cut my teeth in that area, and I think I learned early on of you have to learn every aspect of it, you know, because there are nuances in product that, you hear things. If you're a marketing person and you research, you hear, oh, I want this, I want that. But is it even feasible, right? And the heavier and the harder the goods are, it becomes even more and more difficult. Yeah. And how quick, we maybe go into that in a few minutes, but how quick can you adapt and how quick can you change?
Yeah, I have to imagine, like, you have a sales sheet for a product, which is like 300 words long, right? But if you're going to market something, you have 30 words to do it in. And how do you take something and how do you take the features and what's most important? And I think it used to be a lot harder to know your audience. What does your audience think is most important? Because what you think is the ultimate feature couldn't even be the furthest thing from their minds.
Well, exactly. And I think a lot of times people go after features, right, in products and things that they jump onto, or, oh, I like that. This is shiny. This is new. And what I used to try to do when we would go out and we'd talk about maybe we're doing revisions to product is, what are the gaps? What are the things that this product isn't solving for you? Yeah. And or maybe competitive products. What's the hardest thing you're accomplishing? And, you know, let's take it back to, I know we're going to talk about pickleball and rackets and things of that nature. So, you know, what is it that people are struggling with? What are the areas? Okay, maybe it's, I can't get enough power, right? And people a lot of times will go with that. Well, okay, is it power? Is it accuracy? Is it, boy, my arm hurts afterwards? And understand not maybe the best parts or the shiny things, but the real challenges and work through and then watch. Yeah. I mean, that's a key. A lot of times people ask questions and they never see it in practice.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the golden circle. Simon Sinek did a good job just laying out, you got to start with the why. Right. And it was a very Steve Jobs thing. It wasn't that you were selling a phone. It was you were selling a lifestyle. And this is your digital passport that will follow you. Right. And it's not, hey, the phone is the same phone as anybody else. So I think one of the things is that why are you selling pickleball rackets? And Mike did a good job, but it's like, are you trying to be first to market, right? This wave is coming. Are you trying to be first to market? Or do you play pickleball and you found that there was a gap and you wanted to fulfill that gap?
And how do you think about, the lifespan of that user? And I think that's really important. And that's
important for the long run.
Trend, well, right. And are you
anyone
trend,
can succeed right away,
so
but the
product,
long run.
Clothes. I mean, we're wearing clothes, right? And
I hope so. Not always.
But those tend to be trendy. Right. And sometimes people, follow certain fashions because they're only thinking about it in the moment. Yeah. Whereas you start to look at, okay, if I'm going to go in and I'm going to start playing pickleball or I'm starting to play tennis or golf, am I going to do this for a month, or am I thinking about this over a number of year period? And I'm not. There are always people who go get new equipment every year, but for the most part, you're thinking about it over 3, 4, 5
years. Yeah.
And that goes back to the questions you're asking. So it's not the shiny. It's what's going to make it more comfortable for me. What's going to solve my challenges, and I'm going to be happy with my purchase. For a couple years.
Yeah, and one of the things Mike's going to talk about, he was manufacturing video game controllers. Okay. And in the esports, and what happened was the rise of esports made, a millimeter or a millisecond so much more important. Right. So the buttons didn't have enough give, and that's why he made controllers. So he was thinking about those things before. The issue becomes like, if you're thinking about that, so is someone else. And if it's a game of milliseconds, then you're going to always be beat. So you have someone beating you to the milliseconds. Right. So that's where the brand comes into it. And are you getting that message out? And yes, there will be a small niche of people playing video games that are looking for a millisecond. But most people just want a controller that's going to work. They want one that their friends come over, they could show it to. I think it's probably the same with pickleball, right? They want one that they're like, oh, you got that racket? That's cool. Like, that's what they want.
Yeah, like, oh, you didn't buy that, did you?
Yeah.
And, and then they're doing it maybe once a week. Right, so it's they're playing Sunday pickleball or whatever. So it's got to be that comfort in use. Most people are going to be followers, right, and to some degree, to your point. But how do you make them comfortable in the decision that they've made?
Yeah, and that's a funny thing you say. You don't want them to have buyer's remorse, right? That is the ultimate number one thing of any sale. It's everyone thinks about the sale and they make the sale. But right after the sale, how do you make sure? And that's why if you look, like packaging has become so important. When you open a box, it is a presentation. And it used to just be Apple that does it. Now you can order a $12 vacuum on Amazon, and it is coming packed to the T. They put money into it. So I think overcoming that buyer's remorse is really important also.
Well, and I think one of the things will be interesting too, and I have not gotten into pickleball. I grew up playing tennis. And so, I did all the tournaments. I've seen all the trends, how people follow, you buy this racket because, Djokovic played this racket or Serena played this racket.
You got a good backhand, forehand, here's the spin you have.
So pickleball, you don't have that yet,
yeah,
right? So you don't have these influencers out there. You also
not on that level. There are influencers, and Michael talked about. There are people, if you're in the sport, that are they're not on TV in front of 30 million people, but they're people.
But probably 90% of his audience right now don't know those influencers yet.
90% of his audience is country club pickleball players that live, they have been competitive within their community. They probably retrofitted 2 old tennis courts, and to be honest with you, that's what they do. Right. They make them into pickleball courts, even though I see plenty of people playing tennis, but they make them into pickleball courts, and that's who they're going after, those weekend warriors, if you will.
Right. So, then you're thinking about how do I go about, creating something that maybe the early adopters are going to go after, and that becomes common for their friends and the rest of the club members. And what's, it's probably not going to be so unique, right? Because how am I going to get some of that? Looks weird. And I'm going to go way back. So back when I was playing tennis, I even for a period of time, someone had, and I used it for a while. It was called the lobster racket. It was a very oblong racket. Okay.
Sideways oblong.
It was sideways oblong, which created, if you were a certain style player, was fantastic.
Sure.
I was a serve and volleyer, so
got it.
From the serve perspective, from
probably
being at the net,
it was
fantastic. Now, for my ground strokes, it was incredibly hard to be consistent from the ground
stroke. So if you're playing somebody who's better or good, they'll just play against your strengths.
Right. If they can keep me off the net and knowing that I'm not going to be as consistent playing with that racket.
Yeah.
And so
it's a strategy game, right? It's like a chess match. You're going back and forth.
But a lot of people looking at that, okay, if you're in pickleball, you don't have and understand that you're not, that real high-end user, you're going to go, that looks weird. Why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also something to be said about, it's a guy versus the big companies, right? Hey, this is a pickleball player who was playing and saw an opportunity and started making. And again, I think that's where it comes to, right? I think it's good to be first into market. I think it's good to be second into market. You don't want to be third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, or 12th in the market. But then once they failed, being 13th or 14th in the market is not a bad thing, because you're making decisions based on what you've seen succeed and fail before you. But I think, again, it's all about when you are marketing, and everything is marketing. I'm not necessarily talking about advertising, but every time you get placement on the floor of a country club, that is marketing. Those are things you have to think about. When you get into PGA Tour Superstar, which Michael talked about, he did, like those are parts of marketing. And I think if you're not deliberate, if you start and say, oh, we'll think of marketing soon, even in this field, you're screwed. Marketing should be one of the first things eventually, because again, everything is marketing. Advertising and marketing are different things. Everything you do that is forward-facing is marketing. And if you want people to buy your product, you got to be marketing.
And so are they doing things like I jumped into the Pickleball Center over near PJ Superstore in Roswell, and they do a couple days a week. They do introductory kind of classes, right? So are they providing the rackets for those introductory classes, right? Because guess what? That's going to be the first experience. You'll have some people that'll show up. They'll have the outfit, they'll have the shoes, they'll have the pickle on day one. But most people are like, okay, I want to go see if I even like this, right? And so are you seeding yourself there? I mean, it's very inexpensive. You give that, I think that place had like 18, 20 courts. You give them 10, 15 rackets that they can utilize for for all the introduction.
Sure. And it's funny you mentioned that. Like, I think racket sports are so. Everyone thinks they're an athlete, they can play a racket sport. And I remember I was in college and I took a racquetball class, and I got to the finals of this class purely being an athlete. And I'm about to play this guy just obese. I was in. I was going to win the championship. This dude schooled me. I've never seen a guy just nonchalantly place the ball into the corner. Like, there's nothing I was doing. And racket sports are so funny like that, man. You can be the best athlete in the world. If you can put a backspin on that ball and get it away from you, you are never hitting it.
Even in my 20s and 30s, I'd play sometimes with my dad and some of the guys, their 60s and 70s would play doubles. These are people who played nationally, and seniors. And it was a ton of fun because, athletically, same point. I could run all over the court. But the ability to control the ball and do things, and now I'm becoming that person. So it's kind of fun, It's like, you see the younger people, and you're like, okay, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, but at the same time, run around when you're young. Run around when you can run everywhere you can run.
Do it,
Yeah. So let me set the stage. So Mike Gottlieb owns Pickle, PCKL, and it is one of the larger racket companies. He's doing some other things, going to get into clothing. We'll talk about a bunch of that stuff with him. But he does it right out of Atlanta. Cool dude, part member of Ansley Country Club. Met him out there. When I eventually have time, which I don't now, to get into pickleball, I will use one of his rackets because I told him I would. But I think, a lot of this is this a trend, or is this a permanent thing? And I think that's a lot to be find out. And I think we're going to run the interview. And I think when we get back in the third segment, I think let's you and I kind of finish that discussion of how do you spot, is this going to be staying power? Is this going to be a trend? And we'll have that.
Because there's other things in the sports world that we've seen over the last few years that were definitely just a fad.
Yeah, and you never know. And there's some that I thought were going to be fads that have continued to last. So you just really have no idea. So I think it will be a good conversation. So
it's
check
exciting. It's one of the big things that's going on in the entertainment world today.
It is. So check out our interview with Mike Godfried, CEO and president of Pickle, and we'll be right back on the Marketing Madmen.
Every 3 minutes, a person in the U.S. is diagnosed with a blood cancer like leukemia, lymphoma, or myeloma, blood cancers that often require patients to endure difficult treatments that leave them feeling weak, cold, and isolated. Subaru of Gwinnett is here to help. Since 2016, Subaru has partnered with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, a cause that FAN has been proud to support for over 24 years. And in the month of June, through our Subaru Loves to Care initiative, we're continuing our partnership with LLS to give even more to patients and their families. Subaru, more than a car company. Visit SubaruofGwinnett.com to learn more.
There is nothing worse than trying to find a reliable mechanic. Luckily, Precision Tune Auto Care has your back. Between their team of experienced mechanics in multiple Atlanta area locations, they fix just about every make or break. Visit PrecisionTuneAuto.com to find the shop nearest you.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Nick Constantino here, and I am with Mike Godfried. Mike owns and runs Pickle, which is PCKL, which is a paddle, ball, and accessory company for pickleball. I mean, you can't go anywhere without even hear pickleball. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So how you doing, Mike?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem, dude. So we're going to get into pickleball because I think it's fascinating. I think a lot of people want to hear about it. But before we do, talk a little bit about your background in the manufacturing space and in the e-commerce space, because I think that probably helped set you up with the knowledge that you needed to do this current gig.
Yeah. So 2 chapters ago, I'll start there. I was running an agency, and I think people say everybody should work in the service business. I think anybody who's in marketing should work in the agency world for some period of time, right? Because you've got to be exposed to different clients. You get to see their businesses from the inside. You get to be a part of a team. You get to see what works. You get to see what doesn't work. You get to get run over a little bit.
Yeah.
And you get to, kind of have to answer to a
you
lot
get
of
to play
people.
fireman a lot. There's
Yeah,
a lot of fires,
right.
a lot to put out. You got to prioritize, to say the least.
So in being in the agency world, I got to see the inside of businesses, and I would just write stuff down, not proprietary things by any means, but what worked, what didn't work, what I liked, what I didn't like, and what made the successful businesses successful. And so that started to get my mind going about, hey, if I were to sort of do this for myself one day, what would it look like, and what would the sort of pillars need to be to make it have a chance of succeeding? Fast forward, I then get brought in to run the direct-to-consumer business for Control Freak, a high-performance video game accessories company. We were big in esports, sort of the Call of Duty first-person shooter.
So give me the year for that.
That was 2018.
Okay.
Started with that.
So right as the spike was coming, right as we were going into COVID, where it just became absolutely crazy.
Yeah, right. We didn't see nobody saw COVID coming, but like that was really great timing in a sense that you got sort of this wave of these next generation platforms.
Yes.
You had esports really kind of coming into the main.
Yes. And I only found that out because when Street Fighter V came on, I logged in and I played against a Korean kid from Korea, and he beat me so bad that I probably never touched the controller.
That's it. Everybody thought they were good at video games until everybody was internet connected and playing against people from all over the world.
It changed real fast.
You weren't good, yeah. So anyway, I'm running the direct-to-consumer business there, and what that meant for us was controlfreak.com, which is our direct-to-consumer website, our Amazon business, which was, I think, 12 or 13 global marketplaces. So we were doing Amazon in the U.S., we were Walmart in the U.S., but then we were doing Germany, Italy, Spain, France, Canada, Australia,
How many players in that market? Dozens, hundreds, and that's for the controllers. Is that many people?
Sorry. Yeah. So our competitors, I would say we were the number one brand. There were plenty of others. They didn't necessarily do a great job of brand building, which was the other piece of this.
Right.
I mean, and for Control Freak, right, brand building was sort of job number one. The product had to be great, but it was ultimately the brand building exercise that we knew would sort of build
that differentiated you.
value.
Everyone was making controllers, no one was branding them, so no one had that.
So we wanted to be viewed as a brand that had a great, high-performing product, but ultimately a brand that people could trust as we rolled out new products, and it wasn't just a single product-based company.
Yep.
So rode that. We, again, started in 2018. 2020 was the perfect opportunity. A lot of businesses got crushed by COVID. We were one of the beneficiaries, right? So you think video games, e-commerce, you're locked in the house. It kind of put the genie back in the bottle for us, too, because we had a significant business in physical retail, and that basically halted and allowed us to kind of focus our resources back on our e-commerce space. We were selling more than we could sell. We were, every single unit that we had was being sold and out the door. We had, production problems just because we couldn't keep up with the demand. And ultimately, the company was acquired at the end of 2020, which set me free to figure out what to do next. I had this entrepreneurial ambition. I had this backlog of experience from the agency world and from Control Freak.
You saw both sides of it, which most people do not.
In-house agency experience, thoughts. I kind of started with this framework of like, okay, with all this experience, what does this need to be? I've got the ability to build a brand. I've got a great team that I can kind of pull from.
The manufacturing side, which is the hardest part. You can be the best marketer in the world. If you don't understand the manufacturing side, you're done.
That's right. I had people who could, help me with that too. And I had the right, again, people around me. I completely believe that you can't do it all by yourself. So ultimately I said, look, I can build a brand. It might as well be in a space that I think is exciting and fun, and I want to sort of go to work and think about it every day, and so do others. I just need a product, and then we can get started with that. And so we looked into a bunch of different things. I looked into everything from, reusable plastic bags to, blue light glasses to other sort of pieces and little things and knickknacks here and there, but ultimately saw pickleball as this trend. It was a trend at that point. It wasn't the behemoth that it's become, but it was analogous enough to esports and to gaming that I felt like, okay, I can kind of, again, take the experience and adapt it and apply it. It's a different space. It's a different consumer, but there's enough overlap that I won't be completely lost.
And just to me, if you're not familiar with the video game space, I mean, how those controllers work is the 10th of a second difference to if you win or lose. Yeah. And I knew that from back in the day, like StarCraft was the biggest one. It was like, if you did not, like the lightning fast reflexes, you had to beat somebody else. I'm not going to say go as far as to say it's a sport, but I'm going to say it is a game of skill, and you have to have the acquired muscle memory and the skills to win at that game.
You need every advantage. You should not leave any advantage off the table, particularly if it's sort of in a affordable space, right? There are custom controllers out there and things that we're selling for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. You're the more affordable accessories, right, that could hit the mass market. And pickleball is the same thing. There are people out there selling paddles for $300, $350, and they may be, I'm not even going to say they are any better. Right, I think they're actually really just branded differently and sold at different price points because there's lots of different.
But the aspect of performance is mandatory on the product in which you're selling, and you have to exude the ability to perform. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed in the space.
Right, you have to have high performance, and you have to have the user believe that what they have is not going to hold them back. The last thing they should think was this paddle held me back from winning that point, or this controller held me back.
Well, they might make that as an excuse, but
at that point it's an excuse, and it's not real. Right. So anyway, figure out what the product can be, and then just to build a brand around it. We came up with the Pickle brand. I worked with a couple folks that I had in the previous life to kind of come up with the visual identity and the branding. came up with stumbled upon a 4-letter domain of pckl.com that was available for us, and that was huge. And kind of started from there. And so we launched, started selling in early 2022. And here we are at the end of 2023, and it's Pickleball. The game has grown beyond my expectations, and the company has really succeeded here in these first 2 years in a way that I didn't know could be possible, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and I want to be about you, especially around Black Friday and sales. But talk a little bit about the growth of Pickleball. I didn't see it coming. I thought it was going to be one of those fizzle-out trends, but the amount of money that was put into the infrastructure to have all these teams and ABs buying a team, and all of a sudden you have these courts being built, and it's part of this gaming entertainment. Talk about that growth, how monumental it is, and what you think is still available and room to grow.
Pickleball, again, I wish it wasn't called necessarily pickleball, because it sounds a little bit silly, and I think a lot of people kind of put it in this category with like cornhole and darts, when it's really closer to golf, maybe tennis, maybe basketball. These are things that people want to spend their time doing. It is an athletic endeavor, it's a skill-based endeavor, but it's also a community-based endeavor. And I think that's really the secret sauce of pickleball, was that when we were sort of in lockdown for COVID or whatever, we weren't allowed to do stuff, and people weren't doing things because of the choices that they were making or whatever the government was saying. People had this starvation for community and making connections with people.
I completely agree
working
with
from home. Pickleball shows up, and like tennis, you're getting out there and you're moving around and you're hitting a ball. Unlike tennis, the games are happening fast. It's all doubles, so you've got 4 people on a court. This idea of sort of open play shows up, where you're rotating partners and courts and people, and you're meeting people and you're building connections, and you're
like speed dating for tennis.
It was exactly that. It's speed dating for everything, and people are starting to make friends and build connections with people that they were kind of starving for in a place where they couldn't do that, in the period of time where things were all sort of upside down.
Yeah, and I think the community part, you're right. Like, one of the things I really noticed, I think it's a lot to do with distrust of governments, and our trade routes were breaking down, and there was not as much international trade, but that community got really, really important. Like, I've never heard so many people talk about like their mayors and their local city council members. That wasn't a thing. It was like your president, your senators, but now all of a sudden that we've really gone back, because for a long time those are the only people you could see. You can only see your community. You weren't getting on planes. You weren't really driving. You were really insulated. So you better like the people you're around. And I think a lot of people realized that and became those people that they like in that community, and that family got even more important.
Yeah, and I think people were also making connections with people that they maybe thought they wouldn't have, right? Like, I've made friends because of pickleball with people who probably don't fit the profile of who I thought my friends would be, right? We're talking across age ranges, across, race and income levels.
We had something in common, right? You found the one thing that's all you need.
That's it. You need one thing, exactly. And so if you could, had the hand-eye coordination to hit the ball over the net, that was the prerequisite. And then you've got this addictiveness to it, which is like, I've been playing golf for a long time. I have not gotten better at golf in a long time.
Yeah.
I'm still getting better at pickleball, and I can still feel it, and I can still see it and achieve it. And even when you watch the pros play, I'm never going to dunk a basketball. I'm never going to, shoot 66 at Augusta. But I can hit a shot in pickleball that says that was like a 5.0 shot. That was a pro level shot. That felt really good. And what I'm watching from the pros seems like I could maybe achieve a little bit of that someday.
That's that golf drug, right? You could have the worst round of golf in your life. All of a sudden you hit one shot, you birdie a shot, you're like, oh my God, I'm the best golfer in the world. That's it. I'm the best golfer in the world.
Yep. So that part of it, it's really fun, and you can see yourself progressing. And I think people like progress, and they like achievement, and they like to keep going.
They like from what I've been told by the video game space, they wanted it to be challenging enough that they keep coming back, but not so challenging that they can't feel like they inevitably will win.
Yeah, and it's an easy game to get started, but then it's an inch wide and a mile deep. When you've got all of the stuff, the skills, you've got tons and tons of content and instruction, online, offline. You've got the pro levels. You've got tons of different.
Ironically, the Exact is the best video games, right? The thing about like the new Street Fighter is it's supposed to be accessible to anyone to play, but when you really get in deep into the technicality of it, it's unbelievable how much the game can change between those two things. It's crazy.
I can play pickleball with my 7-year-old daughter. I can play pickleball with my 75-year-old father. But I can also go out and have a very high-level competitive match with somebody in between. And again, it doesn't matter age or gender or anything like that. It's just, are you out there? Are you running around? Are you having a good time? Are you, do you possess the skill and the thought process? And that's the other part of it too, is that simple athletic ability helps, but it's certainly not the only thing that matters. And it's honestly,
it'll get you on the court. It'll get you on the court. It'll win you a match or two. That's like most of those skill-based games. Like, I remember I played racquetball in college, and I got in second place, and I beat everyone on pure athleticism. Then I played the one guy who actually knew how to play racquetball, and I got demolished, because athleticism is not placing a shot in that corner the way it bounces. That is just practice and practice and practice and practice.
And thinking quickly. And again, to equate it to golf, which I know very well, I have a theory about it that in pickleball and in golf, the right shot is often better than a good shot, in the sense that you don't need to manufacture stuff. If you can think quickly, think what you should do in a situation, sort of the sky's the limit. And so pickleball's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's rewind a little back to this. I'm starting a company. So you're an entrepreneur now. So what did you envision the first couple of months being like, and what were they actually like?
I think I was pretty close. Again, experience kind of told me what this was going to look like. And so I found a little co-working, co-warehousing space that I rented almost like a locker. Bought some product, brought it in, put it in the locker. And every single day I was going to the back of the warehouse with my headphones in, picking up boxes, putting them, shipping them out to customers every single day. I'd print out all the labels. I'd spend, 20, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours on a busy day packing boxes and shipping them out. Then going back to my desk, figuring out what's sort of on the docket from a marketing and ops and doing kind of everything perspective. I was doing everything. You have to do everything. You're just getting started.
Yeah.
I had a limited inventory. I was just kind of trying to make sure that, is there something fundamental about this that I'm completely missing that would, make this not work over the course of a period of time? While I'm doing that, my job was to network and make connections with people who knew more than me. And so I went to a local Atlanta guy who was at this point had been in pickleball for like 8 or 10 years, which is an eternity in pickleball.
Yeah, I didn't even know it existed that long.
Former tennis player. He was nationally ranked. He's a senior pro. He was a friend of a friend. And I took him out to lunch and just kind of said, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And it was what I'm doing. I am doing it, right? But I'm thinking about really kind of, going out and really trying to make a splash with this. Tell me everything you know. Am I crazy? If you were in my shoes, what would you tell me to do or not do or go on? And so, first off, he said, you're not crazy. I think this is a trend, but it's going to continue growing. And for all the reasons that I've loved it, I'm now seeing more and more people where he said to me, I used to be able to tell you every single good player in the country. Then it was, I could tell you every good player in Atlanta. Now I go to courts, even my home courts, and I can't even tell you who these people are and they can beat me. So it's grown with the number of people playing and the skill level of people playing, that it's kind of got its prongs and its tentacles into the culture with people coming into the game. And so he was a little bit of a boosting me in the confidence to say this is going to have some staying power to it for all the reasons that we just discussed. So yeah, that was kind of that. I kind of got the confidence to move forward, had the idea to raise money to be able to put the right amount of marketing, the right team behind this, brand awareness to scale the business, to purchase inventory so I didn't have to have the stops and starts on being able to sell stuff, right?
Yep.
And so got a venture capital commitment to be able to support what we were doing, brought some of the team back together from Control Freak that I felt could run this with me.
Sure.
And we're all still sitting around the table together doing it. And so, now we're off and running, and it's new challenges, new exciting things. I have a theory that if the challenges from 6 months ago seem small, you're doing something right.
You're doing something right.
So it's not my own theory.
Well, considering that 2022 was like yesterday in the space that you're in, that's insane that you've been able to grow that much and you've overcome that much. So congrats. I think, for listeners out there, talk a little bit about the marketing in the e-commerce space, because I think it's one of those things where, are you selling on Amazon? Are you drop shipping? Do you have your own brand? Are you controlling the back end? Are you manufacturing yourself? I think it's such a huge, complicated space nowadays. Give some tips of what you learned in your short time and what's led you to be successful.
Yeah, I think my biggest tip is don't try to do it all yourself. When I was packing boxes, that was for proof of concept, right? I think ultimately you've got to leverage.
The business wasn't ready to scale. You wanted to make sure you had something to scale in the first place.
And it can be expensive, and it can hit your margins in different places. But if you want to actually truly achieve the scale and the growth and the brand awareness and the distribution that you want to have, you can't do it all yourself. D2C from 10 years ago with the sort of, growth of, the Harry's razors and the, Allbirds shoes, like that ship has sailed.
Yeah. The margins are too thin.
The margins are thin, and the operation, it costs too much to build the operation yourself. And so we utilize Amazon heavily as a third-party logistics partner, but also as a sales channel. It's the largest retailer in the world. Why wouldn't we be there? We do it from a marketplace perspective.
And the bigger you get, the more Amazon rewards you, from how I understand it. Like, they give breaks, and they're incentivized for especially trendy products to work with, the algorithm works within the parameters a lot better.
Yeah, it is sort of a two-way kind of back-scratching thing, right? Like, the more that you kind of put into it, the more you will get out of it. And again,
the algorithm.
You may look at,
air quotes, if anyone can't see them, the algorithm with the quotes.
And you may look at that, a single unit sold on Amazon doesn't possess the margin dollars or percentage that maybe it does through your website.
Does.
But think about the volume that you can do. And we just had it happen with Black Friday and Cyber Monday, where a typical day on Amazon, gets, 10x basically for those super sale days. And, you kind of made it for Q4 already, and things are looking good. So from a logistics perspective, again, we don't own our manufacturing. I didn't want to build a manufacturing company. I wanted to build a brand.
Yeah.
So we went out, found a third-party partner that kind of believed in the story, believed in our background, was willing to partner with us and kind of grow with us over time. And that relationship has continued to get stronger. So we're producing overseas and importing. We're holding goods here, again, with a third-party logistics company, out of town in Atlanta that is able to warehouse our stuff and distribute it to our customers, not directly to consumers, but our wholesale customers and to Amazon, and then to get it to our direct-to-consumer warehouse, which, again, is a partner, not us, not picking and packing.
You have the trend on your side, right? Because something is trendy and in demand, then there's less price sensitivity to it because everybody wants to be a part of it and wants to do it, which means you could have the flexibility that you don't have to do everything in-house.
We don't.
Right? There's enough margin there for you to actually make a good product, get it to people with leaning on a lot of people.
And focus our resources on what we know best, which is marketing, building the brand, marketing the brand, coming up with the right exact, messaging, promotions, pricing, distribution plans. Sales and marketing is what we know how to do. Let's do that, and let's let everybody else kind of help us with some of the supply chain and operations and logistics part of it, which we can manage, but we don't want to have to do ourselves. Yeah,
and I wonder what percent of your marketing, and I don't need exact numbers because I'm putting you on the spot here. I have to imagine there's a lot more new customers out there than there are current customers. What are you doing to attract those new customers?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the million, maybe $1 billion question if I could answer it perfectly, but ultimately there's a mix of preferences that people have. Performance has to be there. The product has to be good. That's part one. Part two is, do they trust the brand? What's the price point they're coming into? Did you attract them with the right features? Are they a super technically minded customer? Or are they maybe more of a, less technically minded and more price sensitive customer? And so ultimately we have to come up with an identity that we feel fits what we want to do. Approachability was big for us, having people simply understand what it is that we were selling them, not have a long drawn out decision making process. Sure. So simplicity.
Because I have to imagine it is an impulse buy to some extent. They saw their friends playing it. They may not even be ready to have played a game yet, but they're like, the only way I'm going to play is if I buy a racket. So
we've got a variety of price points and products to kind of get people at the different sort of investment levels that they're ready to get in at. And then ultimately, we've got the ability to grow with us from there too. And so we've released products that are sort of up market from the initial set, which maybe was sort of beginner, intermediate, or let's try it out type of focused. Now you've got something that's a little bit more of a serious piece of sports equipment that people can rely on and go back to, and that allows us to go back to the existing customers, upsell them again.
You're growing with them. If they get all of a sudden become even borderline competitive, they're going to go buy a better racket because they're going to feel like they need that extra 10% to go win that match for somebody else.
Give them a chance to grow with us. And then on the other side of it, balls, right? Balls have a high repeat purchase rate. People go through balls. You lose balls. Balls eventually do wear down or break or crack, although ours tend to last a lot longer than our competitors. But ultimately, you want to build trust. You want to give them a great product, and you want them to come back. And so you can pay a little bit more to advertise. Cost of acquisition can go up a little bit, knowing that you're going to have a lifetime value. With balls, it's not quite razors and razor blades, but if you got balls and paddles, it's a little bit of a two-pronged approach to attracting customers into the fold.
Yeah, well, look, this has been awesome. I'm going to leave you with two final questions, and we're talking about the future now. So where do you see the growth of pickleball in the next, call it 18 months, in the next 5 years? And then what part does your company play in that growth, and where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, so pickleball itself, there's still a massive court shortage. Facilities are being built, not even close to fast enough. The demand for pickleball court space far exceeds the supply of it right now. And so as facilities are built, it's going to bring even more first-time players in. People are going to be bringing their friends. People are going to be playing more often. So if you were playing 1 or 2 times a week, now you're playing 3 or 5 times a week. That starts to actually, build upon itself.
And you bring up a good point. I have to imagine this is more of a suburban sport then, just because of the space required. I'm sure you can convert old tennis courts and stuff, but the space required, I have to imagine that it's pushing itself a little.
It does. It fits the suburban lifestyle a little bit too, right? I think ultimately, there's it's a leisure aspect of it. If you've got maybe, the space and the time on your hands and a family and things like that, pickleball fits into that lifestyle.
And the infrastructure is built because of Alta and the tennis courts. Those communities already have that competitive nature built into it, which probably makes it expand faster.
It's great for Atlanta. It's great to be sort of local in the biggest racket sports city in the country, not only per capita, but with Alta and the sort of tennis culture here. It's been a huge growth engine for the sport. So ultimately, pickleball is going to continue to grow. People are going to want to get into it. Young people are getting into it. There's college programs that we just talked to the University of Georgia, and their pickleball club has 800 kids in it already. So the sport's only going to continue to grow. So I think 18 months and 5 years down the line, 5 years down the line, you're going to see pickleball courts everywhere, the same way you see tennis courts at public parks and
what's
everywhere
the biggest threat to pickleball, and what's the biggest thing that can get in the way of that untapped growth?
People are trying to come up with answers to that. Injuries, people talk about, you have more people playing, so more people are going to get injured naturally.
If you're playing any sport, I've been injured playing golf. I've thrown my back out twice playing golf. Anything you play has a chance, especially if you're an old man.
If you're getting up off the couch and you're starting something new, you might get hurt. Especially if you're doing it 5 times a week instead of once every 5 months. The noise has been a little bit of an issue. I think at least within residential communities, you've seen that a bit.
Right, because you're not allowed to scream during tennis. It's poo-poo to scream during tennis, but it's more
there
fun
are other things that are noisy. If you've ever been next to a basketball court, it is loud. The ball bouncing on the ground is loud. I think it's maybe a bigger deal, or less of a big deal than people are making of it. I think people are trying to break things down. That's what we love to do in America. You build something up, you break it down, and then you build it back up again. Of course. So threats-wise, I think that you've got millions and millions and millions of people playing. Maybe it's a little bit of a fad that the gold rush kind of wears off, and that the rush from the courts and the equipment and the pro tours fades out. But then the facilities are there, the courts are there. People are always looking for something to do to fill up their leisure time. It's going to be there. So I don't see a ton of, I don't see pickleball bubble bursting in a way that
good. That's good for you. So where is your company in 5 years?
So in 5 years, look, we got to focus on what's in front of us for the next 6 to 12 months and take it a step at a time. I can't see the future, so I don't know.
You sound like a quarterback on a college football day, giving this speech after. Well, it was the team and it was God. So 5 years.
We've got to. There's 2 moats that I see that we can build, and we got to build a little bit of a moat because it is a very competitive space. The first moat is our brand. Can we continue to build a brand that connects with consumers that they want to be a part of, that they are attracted to, that they can get inside the community of, and really, have a journey with us? And the second part of it is distribution. I think that because there was this ease of sort of getting online and selling online, that allowed a lot of different companies to get into the space. Very low barriers to entry. Distribution becomes something that we can, can you get pegs at certain retailers?
But that's why that brand becomes so important. I mean, one of the things about barrier to entry, if you have built an established brand, it's much harder to take that person down. How to distribute and manufacture isn't as important. The brand is what carries the value.
Right.
And a lot of people forget that in that e-commerce space. And that's why you see these people that do great and then they fizzle out. And some of them want to. Some of them just want that quick ROI and be out of it.
Yep. So if we can focus on building a couple of those, moats up, right, with our brand and our distribution, I think that'll provide us options as to what to do in the future. I don't know where things will go. We might get into padel or the next racket sport or something like that. I don't necessarily see that happening.
I personally think Highlight needs to make a comeback for sure.
It's fun to watch, that's for sure.
Awesome. All right, so tell everybody the website, tell them where to find you.
Yeah, so pickle.com, PCKL.com is our home. That's where we've got our entire line of paddles, balls, accessories. We've got new bags launching here in a couple weeks, so exciting stuff to be able to kind of live the pickleball lifestyle.
You got to show it off, right?
You got to have it. Our Pro Series 13 and 16 paddles are our best sellers, so believe it or not, the highest end paddles are the ones that people want to come into. So once you bought into the sport, you can get a great paddle. It's a thermoform carbon fiber paddle that's going to last a really long time, super high spin, a lot of power, really just fun to play with and hit with it. You get kind of a jolt of energy. Cool. It's the best. And you can find us online at pickle.com. You can find us on Amazon. You can find us at the PGA Tour Superstore across the country in their new pickleball section, which is taken over the back. So
very cool. Exciting. Well, Mike, congrats, brother. The best way, if you've never tried it and you want to, is go out and try it. I don't care what racket you use. Get out there and try it. It's the only way. We have a big problem in this country. We all sit down too much. Get out, play pickleball, buy stuff from Mike and from Pickle, and we'll catch you next time on the Marketing Madmen.
Every 3 minutes, a person in the U.S. is diagnosed with a blood cancer like leukemia, lymphoma, or myeloma, blood cancers that often require patients to endure difficult treatments that leave them feeling weak, cold, and isolated. Subaru of Gwinnett is here to help. Since 2016, Subaru has partnered with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, a cause that FAN has been proud to support for over 24 years. And in the month of June, through our Subaru Loves to Care initiative, we're continuing our partnership with LLS to give even more to patients and their families. Subaru, more than a car company. Visit SubaruofGwinnett.com to learn more.
There is nothing worse than trying to find a reliable mechanic. Luckily, Precision Tune Auto Care has your back. Between their team of experienced mechanics in multiple Atlanta area locations, they fix just about every make or break. Visit PrecisionTuneAuto.com to find the shop nearest you.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Nick Constantino and Trip Job here, and we're following up to our conversation with Mike Godfried of Pickle. And Trip, he's a really cool guy. I love. We do these in person, and you know this, and we do not do. We have not done a Zoom interview. We did one. I didn't like the sound quality, so we got him in person. Great dude. I think the video game background was fun to talk about, but it's cutting your teeth on production and manufacturing. And, some people can just go buy rackets and resell them, and then you're a marketing company. So I think Mike's got some unique perspective, and I think pickleball is one of those things where we've even see it grown. There's so many barriers, right? Like June of last year with a couple of these pickleball companies that are trying to be entertainment. Like, oh, we'll be open in a couple of months. I'm like, no, you won't. They're still not open. It's a year later, and they're still just starting to open. Those are barriers to entry that exist everywhere. But the question I have for you is, how do you know, and how do you prepare yourself, and how do you decide to invest in whether something is going to be a fad or something that is going to be a continual part of the lexicon? And it's so hard, but tips you have, thoughts you have on it, because I think it's the $1 million question. If I was better at it, I wouldn't be sitting on this microphone. I'd be on a private jet right now to Tahiti. But what do you think?
I think it's a challenge, and I'll give some examples where I was wrong.
Okay. Let's start with those. Those are more fun for me to hear.
Yeah. Well, no, I'll flat out, I was wrong about Topgolf. Okay. I was able to be involved when they first opened up in Atlanta. I was doing some work with Roswell Baseball, and we were looking for sponsors, and we knew they were building, and they. they invited us out, and I saw this, and I'm a golfer, and where I was wrong there is, look, golfers, this is not going to be interesting.
Yep,
right.
You got it exactly right.
And when we even went to the grand opening, and then I went back another time, I realized that, and I think this is one of the key differences between a fad and really a trend. I was thinking it from that they were positioning this at the narrow spectrum of golfers.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I got there, and it was a nightclub.
Yes.
It was an entertainment.
Yes.
There was a family aspect of it. And they had a much broader view of their target audience.
Yes.
And they found different ways to serve through golf.
Yes.
But they found different ways to serve different audiences. And I was totally wrong.
And I think your instinct to be why you were wrong is not wrong. Yeah. You were wrong because the natural instinct is to think that golf courses would hate this, that golf doesn't want this. In fact, golf embraced it when Callaway bought them, and you saw how much golf embraced it, because now all of a sudden you're bringing people into the game that have never been a part of the game before. Right. But the one thing I will defend you on the other side is that ultimately I loved Topgolf when I sucked at golf. Yeah. Now that I've gone out and played golf and enjoy playing golf, there's something different about hitting a ball into a hole and hitting a ball to a net. And even though they have got trackers, and I've gone with people who are good golfers, and we play virtual courses, and it still feels so much more real than any simulator. Right. Plus, they did one thing that most don't. They invested in the media up front. Yes. So they were controlling their own media company also. So if you can do those two things, and again, John and Bill are not starting Topgolf. The investment, the capital investment to do something like this, but I agree. I mean, and I wouldn't put pickleball on that level because there's more competitive, and this is teams and country clubs. But I see what you're saying for sure.
And it's a different scale. But I think going back to when I looked at pickleball when it first came out, I think that they have a broader audience. It's not just tennis players, and I think that was a lot of people's concern. And again, I'm only speaking for Atlanta, though you're hearing the same thing outside of Atlanta. Atlanta's a huge tennis community, but I think the biggest fear was, are tennis players going to go for this? And the reality, I think what they saw is we have past tennis players who maybe can't, move around as much, want to stay active, want to do things. Sure. We have other people who are looking for a way to be a little more active, but are never going to be able to pick up tennis. Yeah. Right? From the physical durability side of things. And I think that's, to me, it's not this real narrow niche. Yeah. You can do it inside and you can do it outside. So the more I kind of started watching, I wish I had maybe thought about investing in some things early on, but I think it's going to go beyond a fad because they do have a broader spectrum of people that are available for their market.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. I think one of the reasons that Topgolf is actually a good comparison to pickleball is because both existed because of the stuffiness of the sports. So golf perceived for a long time, and I mean, there was a Topgolf when I was in Virginia 15 years ago, so it's not brand new, but golf always perceived stuffy, only for uber rich people, right? Tennis, so stuffy. I go to the Atlanta Open every year, and you're not allowed to walk in while they're hitting the ball. It's so super quiet, but then all of a sudden the speaker comes in. It's like, "Oh, girl, back that ass up!" And it's like, "Wait, you can't do both those things. You can't be both those things. You can't put ghetto blasting music on while you're telling me I have to sit in the stands. Come on." Yeah. So I think that they both got really stuffy, and I think that's why these opportunities arisen, right? No one is going to play pickleball while not having a beer in their hand. It's a social thing. You play quick games. It's not a tennis match, which could go on. And I'm not saying people don't drink while they play tennis, because in my head, if you're playing anything, there should be a beer in your hand. But I'm just saying that the stuffiness led to Topgolf. Some of the stuffiness of tennis led to pickleball, which is more social, fun, these restaurants. Could you imagine a drinking tennis court entertainment place? No, they're on every corner now for pickleball.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying?
No, and I think it becomes the night out, and it doesn't take as long. I mean, even golf always had that reputation of it took too long. But if you're if you play USTA and you play Alta, and a lot of places only have 2 courts, so it's a 6-hour event for the teams. 2 hours and then another 2 hours and another 2 hours.
I ain't got 6 hours to play.
Now you can go have the 2 hours and the drinks. Yeah, right. And so I think that I think there's a lot of positives that are going on.
What else?
There.
What do you think? For me, I think that one, I would say follow the investment, but I think that's changing also, right? There was so much private equity money. Everything was free. Everyone was investing in everything. Now, I think if you really see investment going into something, there's probably a good chance that it's much more well vetted out nowadays.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people follow celebrities, and I think you really want to, if that's the case, how involved are they? Is it their money? Is it their agent? Or are they actively involved? And I think
and actively
by and large, if they're actively involved and committed to it, you've got a better shot.
And actively involved means that they're actually doing the product when their microphones and the cameras are not on them, right? Because all these athletes have become great spokespeople, and they could pretend to be anything. But are they your gauge, right? It's the Warren Buffett. Like, are they using these? Invest in things that you understand and you can use. Are they using these products?
Hey, I mean, this goes way, way back, and this is a conference we're at, and we had a business that had an investor, and they wanted to come in as a dealer and distributor, and their big client, their investor, was Scottie Pippen. And I sat next to Scottie on the sofa in the Swiss Hotel in Chicago, for an hour as we were going through and vetting them. And, it's a case of Scottie had money and had an agent who was looking for, quote, deals. Scottie, I mean, as you talk to him and all, he was trusting people. He didn't understand. So, in that case, if you're looking at that, you're going, wait a second. I can't factor him into this at all. I've got to factor a lot of other things because he had no clue of what this business opportunity was.
Yeah, and that's changed. These guys have become much sharper with what they're investing in. And I mean, you just saw these companies that are existing are purely fund-based investments that are being managed by professionals. And again, being a celebrity is not enough anymore. There's a lot of celebrities and there's a lot of people investing. But at the same time, no one in a million years, if you had to compare Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, would say this idiot is going to make any money and this guy's made $1 billion being an influencer for just being a schmuck on YouTube. So I think the nature of that has changed just so quickly. It's so hard to figure it out.
And the last piece is, what does it take? What do you have to do to get the word out and market it, right? And how big a lift is it?
And do you have the funds?
Right,
the time,
that goes back to the investment
to do it.
Right, and if it's going to take $1 million to market something, and you don't have that, then back up.
And I also
don't do it.
think the longer it takes to get to market, the more money it takes to get it going. Because a lot of people think, it'll be a market in 6 months. Well, what if it's a year and a half? You're gonna have to pay 3 times more marketing to get there because your barrier to entry is shrinking.
We can go back to our restaurant discussion, but I think this was fun, and obviously wish them the best. And so, we'll have to get out and see what their pickleball rackets are like.
We do.
So, all right. Well, this has been great. You've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3, and we'll be back next week.
Every 3 minutes, a person in the U.S. is diagnosed with a blood cancer like leukemia, lymphoma, or myeloma, blood cancers that often require patients to endure difficult treatments that leave them feeling weak, cold, and isolated. Subaru of Gwinnett is here to help. Since 2016, Subaru has partnered with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, a cause that FAN has been proud to support for over 24 years. And in the month of June, through our Subaru Loves to Care initiative, we're continuing our partnership with LLS to give even more to patients and their families. Subaru, more than a car company. Visit SubaruofGwinnett.com to learn more.
There is nothing worse than trying to find a reliable mechanic. Luckily, Precision Tune Auto Care has your back. Between their team of experienced mechanics in multiple Atlanta area locations, they fix just about every make or break. Visit PrecisionTuneAuto.com to find the shop nearest you.
Tonight in Arkansas, there's a mother tucking in her daughter and turning off the light. A business owner is burning the midnight oil. An at-home dinner date is plating up possibility. And it's all happening under one roof. How? The power of a conversation, like the one John from Integrity Solutions had with First Horizon Bank about his vision for a sustainable mixed-use building. Now it's not just words, it's life. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/John. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.